There's a moment when you realize that the loudest person in the room is often the emptiest inside. They fill every pause with words, every silence with noise, desperately trying to convince themselves and others that they exist. But what if I told you that the most powerful thing you could ever do is the opposite? What if your silence could become your greatest weapon? Carl Jung once observed something profound about human nature. He noticed that those who have truly found themselves, those who have journeyed into the depths of their own soul, speak less and mean more. They understand that silence is not the absence of power, it is the presence of it. Think about the last time you met someone who made you feel uneasy, not because they were aggressive or loud, but because they were quietly confident. There was something in their stillness that felt magnetic, almost threatening to those who hadn't found their own center. This is the paradox Jung understood. Silence makes people uncomfortable because it forces them to confront their own inner noise. When you stop filling every moment with chatter, others begin to hear the chaos in their own minds. Your peace becomes a mirror for their restlessness. Most people fear silence because they fear what they might discover in it. They're terrified of the questions that arise when the external world goes quiet. Who am I when I'm not performing? What do I really think when I'm not echoing others? What do I feel when I stop running from my feelings? You, however, have learned to sit with these questions. You've made friends with the uncomfortable spaces between words. You've discovered that in silence, there is clarity. In stillness, there is strength. In quiet observation, there is wisdom. When you enter a room and don't immediately fill it with your voice, something shifts. People begin to wonder what you're thinking. They start to project their own insecurities onto your calm presence. Your silence becomes a canvas on which others paint their fears. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. This is about the natural consequence of inner work. When you've done the hard labor of knowing yourself, you no longer need constant validation from others. You don't need to prove your worth through words. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, separate from the collective noise of society. It's a lonely path at times, but it leads to a kind of power that can't be taken away from you. There's a reason why the wise ones throughout history were known for their measured words. Buddha spoke in parables. Jesus taught through stories. Lao Tzu wrote in riddles. They understood that truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. Your silence is not empty space. It's full of possibility. It's pregnant with potential. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. People lean in to hear what you have to say because they know it will matter. But this silence we're talking about isn't the silence of the defeated or the withdrawn. It's not the quiet of depression or social anxiety. It's the silence of the sovereign, someone who has claimed their own throne and no longer needs to justify their right to sit on it. Think of a mountain. It doesn't announce its presence with noise. It simply is. Its very existence commands respect. Its silence speaks of ancient wisdom, of having witnessed countless storms and remained standing. This is the quality you develop when you learn to trust your inner stillness. People will try to pull you into their chaos. They'll ask you what you're thinking, why you're so quiet, if something's wrong. They'll interpret your peace as judgment, your stillness as superiority. This is their discomfort speaking, not your reality. You see, when someone has never learned to be comfortable with themselves, your comfort with yourself becomes threatening. It reminds them of what they lack. Your self-possession highlights their self-doubt. This is why Jung observed that silence makes them fear you. Not because you're intimidating in an aggressive way, but because you represent something they haven't achieved, inner peace. You embody a quality they desperately want but don't know how to cultivate. Your silence forces them to confront their own relationship with themselves. If you can be quiet and content, why can't they? If you don't need constant stimulation and validation, what does that say about their needs? In a world that profits from your insecurity, your self-assurance becomes revolutionary. In a culture that demands you explain yourself constantly, Your refusal to justify your existence becomes radical. But this power comes with responsibility. When you wield the weapon of silence, you must do so with wisdom. Your quiet strength should not be used to diminish others, but to inspire them to find their own center. There's a difference between the silence of wisdom and the silence of withdrawal. Wisdom's silence is engaged, present, aware. It's the silence of someone who is fully here, fully listening, fully experiencing the moment without needing to comment on it. This kind of presence is magnetic. People feel seen and heard by you, even when you're not speaking. Your attention becomes a gift because it's not scattered, it's not divided, it's not performing, it's genuine. When you've learned to be comfortable in your own skin, you stop needing to fill uncomfortable silences. You realize that not every pause needs to be plugged with words. Sometimes the space between thoughts is where the real communication happens. Your silence becomes a sanctuary, not just for you, but for others. In a world full of noise, you become a place of rest. People begin to seek your presence not for what you say, but for how you make them feel. Calm, accepted, understood. This is the paradox Jung identified. By saying less, you communicate more. By taking up less auditory space, you command more psychological space. By making yourself smaller in volume, you become larger in impact. But developing this kind of silence isn't easy. It requires you to do the inner work that most people avoid. You have to face your shadows, your insecurities, your need for approval. You have to learn to validate yourself instead of seeking validation from others. You have to become comfortable with being misunderstood. Not everyone will appreciate your quiet strength. Some will mistake it for arrogance. Others will interpret it as judgment. A few might even feel threatened by it. This is not your problem to solve. Jung understood that individuation, becoming who you truly are, often means standing apart from the crowd. It means being willing to be different, to be misunderstood, to be alone if necessary. It means choosing authenticity over acceptance. Your silence is not a weapon you wield against others. It's armor you wear to protect your peace. It's a boundary that says, I don't need to engage with every provocation, respond to every criticism, or defend every choice I make. When you stop explaining yourself to people who are determined to misunderstand you, something magical happens. You reclaim your energy. You stop giving your power away to those who would use it against you. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you become selective. You choose when to speak and when to listen. You choose which battles deserve your words and which ones deserve your silence. People will test this boundary. They'll try to provoke you into breaking your peace, into justifying yourself, into engaging in drama that serves no one. Your ability to remain centered in these moments is where your true power lies. There's something profoundly unsettling to chaotic people about encountering someone who has found their center. Your calm reminds them of their storm. Your peace highlights their turbulence. Your silence reflects their noise. This is why they might attack your character, question your motives, or try to pull you into conflict. They're not really attacking you. They're fighting their own reflection in your stillness. Jung would say this is projection. They're attributing to you the qualities they can't accept in themselves. Your groundedness triggers their rootlessness. Your self-acceptance confronts their self-ejection. But here's what they don't understand. Your silence isn't a rejection of them. It's an acceptance of yourself. Your quiet strength isn't superiority. It's sovereignty. You've simply learned to be your own best company. When you can sit in a room full of people and feel complete without saying a word, you've accessed a power that no one can take from you. When you can listen to criticism without feeling compelled to defend yourself, you've found freedom. This silence isn't about becoming passive or withdrawn from life. It's about becoming intentional with your energy. It's about speaking when you have something meaningful to contribute rather than when you feel socially obligated to fill space. Your words, when they come, carry weight because they emerge from depth rather than surface anxiety. They come from choice rather than compulsion. They serve purpose rather than ego. People begin to listen when you speak because they know your words are precious. You don't waste them on gossip, complaints, or empty social chatter. You save them for what matters. This conservation of energy, this mindful use of your voice, is what creates the magnetic quality Jung observed. You become someone worth listening to because you only speak when you have something worth saying. But perhaps most importantly, your silence teaches others that they don't have to perform for you. In your quiet presence, they find permission to drop their masks, to stop entertaining, to simply be. This is the greatest gift you can offer, the space for authentic being. Your silence becomes a teacher, showing others that self-worth doesn't depend on having the last word, being the funniest person in the room, or constantly proving your intelligence. It shows them that there's power in restraint, beauty in simplicity, strength in stillness. Jung understood that the journey toward individuation, toward becoming authentically yourself, requires periods of solitude, reflection, and yes, silence. It requires you to stop listening to everyone else's opinions about who you should be and start listening to your own inner wisdom. This inner wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. It speaks in the language of intuition, of feeling, of knowing that transcends thinking. To hear it, you must learn to be quiet. To trust it, you must learn to be still. Your silence then becomes a declaration of independence from the noise of the world. It's a refusal to be swept away by the hysteria of the moment, the drama of others, or the expectations of society. When people encounter this kind of centered presence, they don't know what to do with it. They're used to people who react, who defend, who explain, who seek approval. Your refusal to play these games confuses and, yes, sometimes frightens them. They fear your silence because it represents something they haven't achieved, inner peace. They fear it because it reminds them of their own inner chaos. They fear it because it shows them what's possible when someone stops running from themselves. But you, having done the work of self-discovery, having faced your shadows and embraced your wholeness, no longer need their approval or understanding. You've found the approval that matters most, your own. Your silence is not the absence of voice, it's the presence of choice. You choose when to speak and when to listen. You choose when to engage and when to observe. You choose when to explain and when to simply be. This choice, this sovereignty over your own voice, is what makes others uncomfortable. In a world where everyone feels compelled to have an opinion about everything, your selectivity stands out. In a culture of constant commentary, your restraint is revolutionary. Jung knew that true power isn't about dominating others. It's about mastering yourself. It's not about making noise. It's about making meaning. It's not about being heard by everyone. It's about being understood by those who matter. Your silence will make them fear you, not because you're threatening, but because you're free. Free from the need to justify your existence, free from the compulsion to perform, free from the anxiety of not being enough. In your quietude, they see their own potential for peace. In your stillness, they glimpse their own possibility for power. In your silence, they hear their own invitation to come home to themselves. This is the gift and the challenge of the individuated life. You become a mirror for others' possibilities and a reminder of their current limitations. Not everyone will appreciate this gift. Not everyone is ready for this reminder, and that's okay. Your silence isn't meant to be comfortable for others. It's meant to be authentic for you. Your power isn't meant to be understood by everyone. It's meant to be owned by you. When you embrace the profound strength that comes from knowing yourself so deeply that you don't need to explain yourself to others, you access something Jung called the transcendent function, the ability to hold paradox, to bridge opposites, to find unity in diversity. Your silence becomes a bridge between the noise of the external world and the peace of the inner world. It becomes a teacher for those ready to learn and a mirror for those brave enough to look. So let them fear your silence. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them project their insecurities onto your peace. You are not responsible for their comfort. You are responsible for your authenticity. Your silence is not a weapon, it's a sanctuary. It's not a wall, it's a doorway. It's not empty space, it's sacred space. In this space, you have found yourself. And in finding yourself, you have found a power that no one can take away. Remember, the mountain doesn't apologize for its silence. The ocean doesn't explain its depths. The stars don't justify their light. And you, having found your center, need not explain your peace. If this message touched something deep within you, if you recognize the power that comes from finding your own center, if you're ready to embrace the strength that emerges from silence, comment below. I choose my peace.